This is the SIT report. The 21st century, marked by technological advancement, is witnessing a chilling resurgence of fascism. This insidious ideology, characterized by authoritarianism and ultranationalism, is rearing its ugly head across the globe. Far-right movements are gaining traction, exploiting economic anxieties and social divisions. Their rhetoric, laced with xenophobia and intolerance, resonates among a disillusioned populace. The echoes of history reverberate with chilling familiarity. The mass rallies, scapegoating of minorities, and suppression of dissent are stark reminders of democracy's fragility. The world has witnessed the devastating consequences of unchecked fascism. Despite lessons etched in blood, this dangerous ideology is finding fertile ground again. The resurgence of far-right fascism is a global crisis, demanding attention and action. It is a call to defend democratic principles and reaffirm our commitment to a world where diversity is celebrated. The future of democracy itself hangs in the balance. The rise of fascism in the 20th century and today's far-right movements share striking and deeply concerning parallels. The rhetoric, tactics, and targets bear an unsettling resemblance to the dark days of war and genocide. Far-right movements exploit economic hardship and social unrest, capitalizing on fears of globalization and cultural change. They vilify minorities using scapegoating as a political tool, much like the Nazis did. The Christchurch mosque shootings and Norway attacks remind us of the deadly consequences of unchecked hate and extremism. The January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol starkly warns of the fragility of democratic institutions when faced with extremism and misinformation. The rise of far-right fascism is a global phenomenon, manifesting in different forms across the world. Intolerance, authoritarianism, and ultranationalism bind these movements together. From the rise of the Alternative for Germany party to the election of Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, the far right is making its presence felt on the world stage. In Europe, far-right parties have gained significant ground. They have made inroads into mainstream politics. Their presence has shifted the political discourse to the right. The global reach of far-right extremism is amplified by the internet and social media. These platforms provide a breeding ground for hate speech and disinformation. The resurgence of far-right fascism challenges democratic societies worldwide, demanding vigilance to safeguard freedoms and values. History reminds us of the consequences of complacency. The rise of Nazi Germany, the horrors of the Holocaust, and World War II's devastation show democracy's fragility. Defending democracy requires active participation from all. The fragile fabric of democracy, a constant struggle. Democracy demands active engagement and shared responsibility. Freedoms require constant vigilance and defense. Democracy depends on an informed citizenry and accountable institutions. Weak pillars allow extremism to gain a foothold. Far-right movements erode trust in institutions and media. Disinformation and conspiracy theories sow doubt and cynicism. Countering requires media literacy, independent journalism, and strong electoral processes. Education fosters vigilance and resilience against extremism. Critical thinking and media literacy empower individuals. Schools and community organizations promote democratic values. Defending democracy in the digital age. The digital age presents challenges and opportunities in fighting far-right extremism. The internet spreads extremist ideologies, but also offers platforms for counter-messaging. Combating extremism requires a multifaceted approach involving government, tech companies, and citizens. Social media companies must address hate speech and extremist content. Freedom of expression should not provide a haven for inciting violence or undermining democracy. Germany grapples with a familiar threat. In the heart of Europe, a nation haunted by the specter of its past confronts a chilling resurgence of extremism. The rise of the Alternative for Germany, or AfD, a far-right political party exploiting anxieties surrounding immigration, Islam, and the EU. The AfD's ascent serves as a stark reminder of history's lessons. Founded in 2013, the AfD initially opposed Eurozone bailouts. It quickly shifted to a nationalist and anti-immigration stance. The AfD tapped into resentment and fear, portraying immigrants as threats. In 2017, the AfD became the third largest party in the Bundestag, injecting xenophobia and intolerance into German politics. Economic anxieties and the politics of fear.
The AfD's rise in Germany reflects a broader trend of far-right movements exploiting economic anxieties and social divisions. Globalization and rapid technological change have left many feeling threatened and left behind.
Far-right parties offer simplistic solutions, scapegoating outsiders for society's ills.
In East Germany, the AfD's rhetoric resonates due to economic and social marginalization. The collapse of East Germany's economy led to lasting economic insecurity.
The AfD channels economic anxieties into support for its nationalist agenda. Addressing inequality and social division is crucial to countering far-right extremism. From the margins to the mainstream, the normalization of xenophobia.
The AfD's rise in Germany has shifted the boundaries of acceptable political discourse, injecting once fringe views on immigration, Islam, and national identity into the mainstream. The AfD blurs the lines between legitimate concerns about immigration and outright xenophobia and Islamophobia. By using the language of patriotism and cultural preservation, the AfD seeks to normalize views once considered unacceptable. The party's rhetoric often employs dog-whistle language to appeal to anti-immigrant sentiment without explicitly endorsing violence. For example, the phrase Islamization of the West suggests Muslims pose an existential threat to European culture, a claim debunked by experts but resonant with some. The AfD has called for a ban on minarets, framing it as preserving Germany's Christian character while ignoring religious freedom. The AfD's success in normalizing xenophobia has contributed to a climate of fear and intolerance. Hate crimes against immigrants, refugees, and Muslims have risen, with the AfD's rhetoric creating a permissive environment for such acts. The party's presence in the Bundestag has legitimized extremist views, emboldening far-right groups and individuals.
A continent at a crossroads, the struggle for Europe's soul.
The rise of the AfD in Germany is part of a broader trend of rising far-right populism across Europe. From France's National Rally to Italy's League Party, far-right parties have gained ground, exploiting anxieties surrounding immigration, economic inequality, and national sovereignty.
These parties share a disdain for multiculturalism, skepticism of globalization, and a yearning for a mythical past. The rise of far-right populism challenges the European project, founded on unity, cooperation, and respect for diversity.
The European Union, established to prevent a repeat of past horrors, is built on the idea that nations are stronger together. Far-right parties exploit public anxieties to undermine support for the EU, portraying it as an unaccountable bureaucratic behemoth.
The struggle against far-right populism is a battle for the soul of Europe. At stake are the values of tolerance, human rights, and the rule of law that underpin post-war peace and prosperity.
Confronting this challenge requires addressing public anxiety, strengthening democratic institutions, and reaffirming a shared European identity. Failure to do so risks jeopardizing the achievements of the past 7 decades and plunging the continent into division and conflict.
The seaside town of Southport became an unlikely battleground in the summer of 2024. A whisper campaign of disinformation on social media, alleging the desecration of a local war memorial by immigrants, escalated into hostility.
A fabricated image shared countless times depicted men vandalizing the memorial, their ethnicity implied but not confirmed.
This digital fabrication, fueled by pre-existing tensions, fell on fertile ground. The image tapped into anxieties nurtured by anti-immigration rhetoric from politicians and media.
The line between online vitriol and real-world action blurred with terrifying speed. Within days, a mob, whipped into a frenzy by online agitators, attacked the mosque, hurling abuse, stones, and Molotov cocktails.
The ensuing fire ripped through the building, a physical manifestation of the hate that had consumed the town. The attack on the Southport Mosque was the culmination of a gradual erosion of tolerance and understanding.
The internet had become a breeding ground for hate, where anonymous actors could spread lies and incite violence with impunity. Social media algorithms designed to maximize engagement often served as accelerants, prioritizing sensationalized content.
The events in Southport were a stark reminder of the power of disinformation to ignite real-world violence. The violence in Southport, initially dismissed as isolated, proved to be a harbinger of a deeper malaise in British society. The unrest spread rapidly from the coastal town to other parts of the country.
Fueled by social media misinformation, economic hardship, and unease about changing demographics, riots erupted across the UK. What began as localized anger morphed into a nationwide crisis, exposing deep societal fissures.
In London, clashes broke out between far-right groups and anti-fascist counter-protesters. The streets transformed into battlegrounds, scarred by graffiti, littered with debris, and patrolled by an overwhelmed police force.
Similar scenes played out in Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, and other urban centers. The rioters, united by anger and alienation, targeted symbols of authority and immigrant communities.
As the violence escalated, so did the rhetoric from both sides of the political spectrum. Right-wing politicians demonized immigrants, blaming them for the breakdown of law and order.
Left-leaning voices pointed to underlying social and economic inequalities that created fertile ground for extremism. The media struggled to provide balanced coverage, caught between reporting on the unrest and risking further inflaming tensions.
In the aftermath of the 2024 riots, the UK grappled with the consequences of its deeply fractured society. The violence, though quelled, left an indelible scar, exposing the fragility of social cohesion.
The riots served as a stark reminder of simmering tensions and unresolved grievances. The task of rebuilding trust and fostering unity fell upon a deeply divided nation.
The political landscape, already polarized, became more fragmented, with both sides doubling down on their narratives. The blame game continued, with politicians pointing fingers at immigrants, social media companies, economic inequality, or a loss of traditional values.
The search for solutions proved elusive, as the nation grappled with complex factors contributing to the unrest.
Amidst the recriminations, glimmers of hope emerged. Ordinary citizens stepped up to bridge divides through interfaith dialogues, community cleanup initiatives, and public forums. Civil society organizations redoubled efforts to counter hate speech, combat disinformation, and build bridges between communities.
The path to healing required collective effort and a commitment to fostering understanding and reconciliation. Shadows on the Shining City. The Rise of MAGA. The United States, long considered a beacon of democracy, grappled with its own demons. The rise of the MAGA movement, spearheaded by former President Donald Trump, exposed deep-seated divisions, unleashing nativism, xenophobia, and authoritarianism.
The MAGA movement, rooted in anxieties and resentments of those feeling left behind by globalization, offered a potent narrative. America was in decline, its values under assault. Trump, with his fiery rhetoric, positioned himself as the champion of the forgotten man, promising to restore America by building walls, banning Muslims, and putting America first.
This message, amplified by right-wing media, resonated with millions who felt unheard and alienated. The appeal of MAGA extended beyond economic anxiety, tapping into white grievance and a sense of cultural seeking.
Trump's willingness to court white nationalist groups and use racially charged language emboldened the fringes of the American right.
The lines between mainstream conservatism and white supremacy blurred, with Trump's rhetoric energizing extremist views. The Temple of Democracy under siege January 6th and its aftermath. The events of January 6, 2021, when a mob of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol, marked a turning point in American.
The images of rioters smashing windows and clashing with police inside Congress sent shockwaves around the world, shattering the illusion of American exceptionalism.
The insurrection, fueled by Trump's baseless claims of a stolen election, was the culmination of years of escalating attacks on democratic norms. From assaults on the media to pressuring state officials, Trump chipped away at democracy, normalizing authoritarianism.
The attack on the Capitol was an assault on the very idea of America. The aftermath left the nation deeply divided, grappling with the enormity of what transpired. While some Republicans condemned the violence, many downplayed the events or defended the rioters.
Trump, despite being impeached for inciting the insurrection, remained a powerful force in the Republican Party. The digital battlefield, disinformation, and the erosion of truth. The rise of MAGA and the attack on the Capitol are tied to the broader phenomenon of disinformation.
Social media platforms, designed to connect people, have become tools for sowing discord and undermining trust in democratic institutions. The internet, once a democratizing force, has become a breeding ground for conspiracy theories and hate speech.
The MAGA movement thrived in this environment, relying on emotional appeals and a disregard for factual accuracy. Trump used social media to bypass traditional gatekeepers and spread his message directly to supporters. His tweets, often false and inflammatory, set the tone for his presidency and fueled division.
Right-wing media amplified Trump's message, blurring lines between news and opinion and fueling grievances. Disinformation has eroded trust in traditional information sources, fueled polarization, and created a climate of cynicism.
The line between online rhetoric and real-world violence has blurred, evidenced by the rise of online hate speech and conspiracy theories.
The impact of disinformation on American society has been profound, making rational conversations difficult. Despite his defeat in the 2020 election and his role in the January 6th insurrection, Donald Trump remains a potent force in American politics.
However, Trump's post-presidency has been overshadowed by numerous legal challenges, ranging from his business dealings to efforts to overturn the election results. These legal battles could have profound implications for Trump and American democracy. The rise of MAGA and the proliferation of disinformation have had a chilling effect on American society, contributing to a climate of fear, distrust, and intolerance. The line between online rhetoric and real-world violence has become increasingly blurred, as evidenced by a surge in hate crimes, the rise of extremist groups, and a series of mass shootings motivated by far-right ideology.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups in the United States, has reported a significant increase in the number of white nationalist, neo-Nazi, and anti-government extremist groups operating in the country since Trump's election in 2016. These groups, emboldened by Trump's rhetoric and the normalization of their views in mainstream politics, have become increasingly active and visible, organizing rallies, spreading propaganda, and engaging in acts of intimidation and violence.
The link between online hate speech and real-world violence is undeniable. The perpetrators of several recent mass shootings, including the 2019 El Paso shooting and the 2017 Charlottesville car attack, were active in online spaces where white supremacist and anti-immigrant views are prevalent. These individuals were radicalized online, exposed to a constant stream of hate-filled rhetoric that desensitized them to violence and convinced them that their actions were justified. As the United States grapples with the legacy of the Trump era and the ongoing threat of far-right extremism, can America heal the wounds of division and extremism?
The forces that fueled the rise of MAGA, economic anxiety, cultural resentment, racial animus, have not disappeared. They have been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Republican Party has largely embraced Trumpism, defined by grievance and cultural warfare.
Despite the challenges, there are glimmers of hope. Millions turned out to vote, delivering Joe Biden a decisive victory.
A world on edge, the transnational threat of far-right extremism. The rise of far-right fascism is a global crisis demanding a coordinated response from the international community.
The internet and social media have created a fertile environment for extremist ideologies to spread rapidly across borders.
Hateful rhetoric and disinformation online have blurred geographical boundaries, transforming domestic concerns into a global challenge.
The transnational dimension of far-right extremism is evident in the interconnected nature of these movements.
The internet has become a breeding ground for hate, providing a platform for extremists to connect and coordinate activities across borders. The danger of far-right extremism lies in its ability to inspire violence and destabilize societies, undermining democratic institutions.
These movements gain traction by spreading disinformation and exploiting social media.
Far-right movements often emulate tactics from other countries.
The U.S. Capitol storming inspired far-right groups in Brazil to storm government buildings in 2022.
A coordinated global response is needed to counter their spread. Combating far-right extremism requires a coordinated global response addressing root causes and mitigating harmful consequences.
Governments, international organizations, tech companies, and civil society must confront this challenge together.
Addressing social, economic, and political conditions is crucial to prevent extremism.
Countering online propaganda and disinformation is essential.
Enacting laws against hate speech and working with tech companies are key steps. The resurgence of far-right fascism in the 21st century stands as a chilling testament to the enduring allure of hatred and fear. It is a stark reminder that the march of progress is not linear, and that the hard-won victories of the past cannot be taken for granted. The world stands at a crossroads, facing a choice between division and unity. The peril we face is the erosion of the very values that underpin a just and equitable world. When hatred festers and the rule of law is undermined, democracy crumbles. Yet, amidst the peril, there is also promise. Globalization and technological change have created unprecedented opportunities for connection and pro-democracy movements. The challenge is to harness these tools to counter hate. The fight against far-right fascism demands active participation. We must commit to being informed and engaged citizens, educate ourselves about the dangers of extremism and challenge hateful rhetoric, support organizations promoting tolerance and respect for diversity, have difficult conversations with family, friends, and colleagues. Leaders must defend democratic institutions and uphold the rule of law, protect the rights of all citizens, and condemn hate speech. International organizations must coordinate a global response to extremism, strengthen the global architecture for defending democracy and human rights. The stakes are high, but by standing together, we can build a hopeful future. If you like this content, then like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Stay safe, stay informed. The SIT Report out.